want to break ground sometime next year. I can't wait no longer for what the St. John people can't wait no longer for us to have some place really nice that people can take their children, their grandchildren, and enjoy themselves. And of course, we want to have festival as well. I'll be here for the balance of the evening, listening to whatever suggestion you have, but most of all, no decision have been made as to what it's going to be. And secondly, we expect that don't just talk about it. We'll ask you to reduce some of your thoughts to writing that we could, as a people, sit down, evaluate, get back, call back with you. It was Delris for Valak. Delris Valak. When we did the plans for the down here by the Loredan Boys Dock, when we did it, had one restroom, all the space tight. And it was in the comment time when Delris Valak sent that thing and say, we know it tight, but this one bathroom thing can't work. And so now, whatever they had to do, we're gonna have at least a male and female restroom down in that area. So we're not the experts. We're gonna have to listen to you sometime. Good night, Andy Rotnick. Anyhow, folks, I'm gonna turn it over now to Preston Bayer, that's our Director of Engineering.
Thank you, Executive Director Dow. As he said, my name is Preston Bayer. I'm the Director of Engineering with the Virgin Islands Port Authority. I think our Executive Director has introduced the history of this project and what we're looking to do here. Our engineering division is going to be responsible for overseeing the process of the plans, the designs, the permitting, and then the eventual construction. And so without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Moffett and Nickel, Scott Leger, with a little bit more information and his presentation.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much, and good evening to everybody. I'm going to move over here because I've advanced the slides as well, but certainly a pleasure to be in the St. John's community and back on the islands. I've been coming here for many years, and it's hard to follow up with the chairman, and you can see the director and the passion that he has for this community and for this project. But I'll do my best, and I think he was very clear in terms of setting the stage. We are at the very beginning, not of a conversation. This is a conversation that has been going on for a long period of time, but the very beginning of this master planning process. And tonight I want to sort of share with this audience, both that's virtually, but here in person, some of the steps in the process moving forward. Just some ideas of pictures and program, and start to set the stage of some questions. But I'm planning on only spending about 20 minutes, maybe no more, in talking through the slides, and really then providing the balance of the time to open it up to everybody in this room, to everybody online, to sort of share ideas, experience, thoughts, but ultimately kind of dream about what this place could be and how we get to a point where we can move through design and ultimately implementation in the coming weeks and months. And I'll just skip over this, but clearly the project goal, this is sort of the typed version. And I think, underpinning the idea that we want something, keyword multi-purpose, that's used and utilized for the community, and that it has park-like components, cultural components, but it's a gathering place and it's a celebrated place. That this is a project, it's a once in a 50-year project, right? In a very historic, heritage-driven community. So to create something that has the flexibility, that is about the community, that is sort of a mirror, this idea of memory and prophecy, something that looks back but also looks forward, and creates a place that generationally is handed down, really for me, and hopefully for everybody in this room, resonates as the penultimate goal, the ultimate goal that we want to achieve to get to that point. It's a very interesting and a very large site, of course. Just from memory, it's about, and here's the site within the broader context of Cruz Bay. And this afternoon, we were talking with the fishermen about the fish market site, and here's CBP and all of that. But here we are down here. It's about almost 4 acres within this yellowish, orangish polygon, about 3.75 acres. It's, of course, contiguous with the car ferry operation. But in many ways, it's kind of on the backside, but still in the center of this area. And to have as large a space and potentially as green a space within this kind of very, I don't want to call it urban, but a very developed historic area is, this is your Central Park. This is your opportunity, I think, to do something extremely unique and forward thinking, and working with you tonight and in the coming weeks and months to understand the context of the site within all of the byways and roadways and activities and residences and things that happen, but also sort of starting to translate that forward into what it needs to be is really my goal. And I've been doing planning for about 25 years, mostly on waterfronts and waterfront communities. Born and raised in Sarasota, Florida, grew up on the waterfront. And so this is the type of stuff I love to do. I always work with when I work with communities, I try to always put my hand up and say, listen, I'm an expert in a couple of things, but ultimately I'm a translator, and my job, and I think as the director asked me to do, is translate your wishes into something that's implementable moving forward. So think of me truly as that, being a translator, your vision into something that you can advance and move forward. Our process and the process that we're moving through from now, which is day one, effectively in the master planning, to the end of December, is basically working through a community outreach program, which has been going on, as Carlton said, going on for a while. This isn't the first conversation that the community has had about this site, but basically move through a process of understanding the site, the issues, the needs the community has, drawing some ideas, exploring them, vetting them, starting to say, that's a good idea, bad idea, can we hybridize things, but get to a point where we can decide and we can say, this is the vision. Maybe there'll be changes through detailed design, final design and permitting, but this really becomes the vision that we want to implement. And then right now, of course, funding for the capital side has not been appropriated. We start to work together to figure out how we take action. How do we take it to the next stage of design, which we have budget for? How do we start to get money to implement? Is it implemented over phases? How quickly can we implement, et cetera, et cetera. Now, all of those things makes it actionable, that we can actually move forward and accomplish the vision for transformation of this site. And so my role as described and what we're doing over the next, these are months up here. So this is month one. So think of this as September. My role over the next 4 months and the balance of this year is to work through those initial steps, understand the site, start to look at concepts and come up with a final plan. And our target is to do that by the end of December. Following that, and really the next big lift is to do the detailed work. And, we're not on contract to do that. We are really excited about the opportunity to have local and community members and designers and practitioners be deeply involved in owning this balance of the project and helping to move that forward into implementation. And I think that is something that, this project effort really wants to be emblematic and reflect, is sort of that idea of all hands on deck, really working through the next stage of detailed design, taking some studies, topography, understanding the soils that are there, the spoils, and the suitability to use those for development, to get into a point of more detailed design, the permitting process, then hopefully final design, and perhaps this can be done even quicker so that we can start to get to break ground, maybe not at the beginning of 2024, but even before that, before the holidays. That could be the Christmas present to this community, that we've actually broken ground and we're able to implement the project throughout the course of 2024. So I'm going to spend just some quick time just briefly talking about the site. Really, I don't want to occupy a lot of time just sort of walking through this, some photos, some examples of some other places and spaces that we've either worked with or for, but just to kind of get everybody's juices flowing. And then we'll really open it up and have a conversation about some of the needs and priorities and ideas that this community has for this 3.7 acre. So, as everybody knows, right, here is the car ferry operation. And this is like it's a double-lined fence almost of a site, right? We've got this perimeter fence and pretty much a ring of asphalt and parking around the majority of the site itself. And then we've got this interior fence line where American Bridge, or where some of the dredge spoils were placed many, many years ago. The opportunity, of course, is to really think through the entirety of this site and how it's going to relate to the surrounding community, how you approach the site, how it will operate, what are some of the components, the programming that's going to be going on. And really, it is multi-purpose. And so from the standpoint that this is engaged in carnival, in a Christmas pageant, in just sort of, liming and hanging out on the weekends, or maybe it needs to be, there's a hurricane, unfortunately, and we need to it needs to change its mood. And we've got relief supplies coming in, and we're staging water, or we're getting, we're setting up satellite trucks and communications, that this has a personality that really thinks about all the times we're recreating and having fun 99% of the time. But oh, by the way, we're adjacent to a deep water port, and we may have to turn on a dime to be able to use some aspect of this property as well to provide relief and support to this community. So those are two things we'll revisit those, but I want you to keep in the back of your mind as well. There's some, go to slide one back. There's a little bit of topography, right? For the most part, this is the low site or the lowest area with sort of topography coming up and around, with just right now the spoil, which isn't really, it's kind of in that photo there that comes up just a little bit. But for the most part, we've got a fairly flat site and a buildable site that we would utilize and we consider. Perhaps we could push some of that material around, but knowing, number one of the constraints is that we're in a wave velocity zone. And so any construction on the site would likely have to be pile supported and developed in such a way that if there's any kind of not a habitable space, but an enclosed space, a restroom, some kind of back of house, some kind of light and AV equipment that's associated with an amphitheater or a band shell, we need that up high and dry. And so we need to think about that. The balance perhaps could be graded and morphed into a series of green spaces and hardscapes that sort of would allow that, unfortunate but possibility of some type of wave or flood or wind-driven activity to happen, and allow it to sort of take that on, and then of course back to normal, be able to be reconfigured and turn the lights back on and get back to enjoying that space. And so that's kind of one of the constraints that we're going to have to take into account. And as we start to, again, continue to understand the site, some of the other things, just in terms of reading email correspondence and some of the previous notes associated with some of the outreach before one of my meetings with VIPA yesterday, we just started to sort of list a few things that we think the site is or maybe is not. Things that, one of the planning terms I like to use is called the framework, right? This idea of how do we start to get to a point where we know basic rules about what we're going to draw and how we're going to draw it. And so some of the things, and again, this is sort of my list. This is for folks to validate or reject in the room for us to continue to talk about, but just a couple of those points. Number one, there seems to be consensus that this truly will be a multi-purpose event and cultural space. And so part of the design, and I'll show an example in a minute, is, well, what are the types of things we might do there? Would we, of course, carnival's been talked about a lot. Would we have a jazz fest or some other kind of performance things? Do we need a stage so we can have, those performances and Christmas pageants and other types of things as well? Would we be erecting stands and booths? And so we might need some power and know those areas where we've got at least enough foundational support to allow for food trucks or stands to come in, restrooms that are brought in temporarily, as well as any permanently constructed restrooms on the site, to really think about not just the idea that it's multi-purpose or that it's, an open cultural space, but what specifically are the types of things that we're going to do there so that we can start to design and think through those. Great park design these days, really around the world, is as much thinking about the capital improvements that you need to make, the hardscapes and the plantings and the restrooms, but it's also the operational improvements, the long-term maintenance, how it's going to sort of behave different times of the year, how it's maintained, how it's lit, how it's secured, that those are as important. And we want to have those operational discussions early on. In my discussions with the team too, that the peak of the peak, maybe the big event that we might have in terms of multi-purpose activities is Carnival, is over the course of 2 weeks, maybe 3,000 to 4,000 people on the site. So again, in terms of master planning, we need to think about what that means, right? Where, where would people flow through the site? If there's an emergency, how would people get off the site? Where will people park? How will they walk, et cetera? And really understand, because that's a big throughput, over 3.75 acres, how we understand sort of in general that would work. Would the performance stage be oriented with the sun facing this way and the sound projecting out of the ocean so it doesn't disturb folks in the surrounding neighborhoods? These are kinds of all things in terms of that peak activity and other activities on the site that we want to think through. We want to avoid, or at least our discussions is, thinking about multi-purpose and cultural space. It's not about building big buildings and big air-conditioned spaces. We really want to limit and avoid construction of enclosed spaces, again, because of the wave velocity zone, the cost, but also this idea of multi-purpose. Anything you put in there that is forever really takes away from the multi-purpose aspect. So we want to think about ways that, yes, we'd have restrooms and maybe some storage and some fixed structures, but for the most part, I think carving this area in a way that allows for a lot of different things to happen becomes that main priority for the site. Talked about POW supported. We certainly want to make sure we show sensitivity to the surrounding area, for residents and visitors. How, from an operational standpoint, is it designed to be secured at night, to limit the hours of operation, to make sure that any kind of lighting that's there has the proper cowls and is not creating light noise to the surrounding community. Things that are being organized like performances. Can we put more activity towards the waterfront? Can we project sound in a direction that's not disturbing some of the areas surrounding? So again, thinking through those and other issues is really important, I believe, early on in this process. And while I'm told we're really not in the historic district, as you saw, this being the Central Park of St. John's, this being right within contextually the idea of the heritage and patrimony of the area, we have lots of opportunities to talk about that story here on the site. And so thinking about, especially as we move later and more detailed levels of designs, that we are looking at ways that we can bring in heritage components and other patrimony to the site as well. Is it, sculpture? Is it painting? Is it muraling? Is it, handprints of local, whatever it might be? There's lots of examples and lots of different ways that sort of idea of art and civic space and purpose can be brought to the area. Where possible, if we have a restroom block, can we put solar PV panels on top of that? Where we have parking stalls, is there an opportunity to have some type of rain barrel and water collection and solar so that we can actually use that to help for irrigation on the site? Really thinking through renewable and sustainable strategies on the site to help it be self-supporting and I think really be in line with the spirit of the island and how you're looking forward in creating sustainable spaces and sustainable operations throughout. And then finally, I started with this, but this idea that there could be that moment where we've got to convert, and all of a sudden we've gone from, a recreational life on the site to something that's relief and emergency driven, and thinking through perhaps how certain areas might be engaged to the adjacent car ferry and port to allow for those types of things to happen. So here's the site once again. I'm just gonna had drawn a couple of quick circles that just sort of say, with this overall site and all of those things that I just listed, one of the focal ideas that we have is to really dedicate almost 3.25 acres, 80 to 85% of the site to do all of these things that we're talking about, that multi-purpose event lawn space, maybe a covered performance stage, sort of powered locations for temporary stall erection or plugging in food truck generators or those types of things, places where we have public art and heritage, certainly parking, restrooms, and then if we have a stage, often it's much better to have some type of storage and permanence with the AV equipment and the lighting equipment so that it's always not brought on site and then taken off site and gets damaged and those types of things, that maybe there's some storage that's probably contiguous with whatever the restroom block would be. And that perhaps this little sliver of land that's right here, that sort of is a tongue of land that approaches, maybe right initially we retain this portion. So it really is almost in reserve for port operations. And it allows us to be able to operate as needed this particular polygon for whatever may come, what may come in this particular zone, but focusing all of those different components in that location. And one case study, I'll say I did not work on this project. I have been working for the community of Lawrenceburg, Indiana, for a couple of years now on their waterfront, their riverfront, in creating a series of floating barges and parks actually on the riverfront. So they have big tides and not tides, but the river's up and down, and actually being able to go on the river and have sort of walking paths and parks on the water. But I was really struck by a recently completed civic park project that they completed. That when I saw the pictures and I saw it in person, I said, and then I talked to the director and heard from others what you want to do. I said, man, there's a lot here in this project that reminds me what St. John's is trying to do. And I'll show you the overall plan, but here's initially some of the key points that they have. Is this will blow up in a minute, and I apologize, it's a little hard to see, but this is a place in an urban area. They're urban, right? They're historic downtown. They're surrounded by buildings that flexes. And 90% of the time, it feels like green space and splash pads and places where people hang out. And 10% of the time, they have performances and fairs and events, and it behaves truly like this multi-purpose cultural park for them that allows for all of these different things to happen. And in fact, this is a street. So when they have these events, now you don't have the street going through yours, which is great, but when this is behaving just like a park, this is a thoroughfare. When this is behaving like the big event space, all goes down, and all of a sudden now you have the benefit of this extended urban space radiating out of the permanent pavilion and stage all the way out to a series of green lawns and landscaping that sort of buffers around the surrounding buildings and neighborhood. And then on some of the side streets, again, it might be a little hard, probably very hard to see, they have places for outlets and plugs for tents and food trucks and stalls and vendors and restrooms and all those things that, again, when you have a big event, it starts to radiate out, and you can start to picture in your mind's eye that all of a sudden you've got a public space that could really behave in a lot of different ways. And I'm not saying you got to follow this roadmap, but it certainly is a project that I saw that said, all right, there's some clues here that this might be something that the folks in St. John's would be really interested to learn about. Some text up there, it is, in our understanding of the site and understanding of how, it'll work, Carnival has certainly been something that's resonated and been brought up several times in the notes. And having you and having the folks in the audience and online help me understand what it's like and what it means. Clearly, we want to make sure that we take that opportunity to understand how that would work in that regard. Can we have music festivals, food trucks, Christmas pageant, Easter events and activities, and bring all of those to the site as well, so that when it's really active and vibrant, it behaves in that way. And can we also, look at the permanence of maybe a performance stage and having that be almost the architectural icon associated with this large 3.75 acre site overall, with green lawns and other kind of places that could be small or large performance zones. Do we have a single pavilion with restrooms and storage and any kind of picnic support, or it's a place where you celebrate birthday parties or family gatherings or other types of things, and find vernacular architecture indigenous to the island that starts to, again, almost bookend the idea that you've got sort of an architectural component associated with the amphitheater piece, and then maybe this other building that then those two communicate and sort of bookend one another and start to create that overall campus feeling. Oh, sorry, St. John. Yeah, see, St. John. Yes, it's not St. John's, New Brunswick. I know. Sorry. Back to the site. So just some last points, and then I'm going to, again, as I promised, and I think I've kept to my word, 20 minutes, no more than 20 minutes. Talk about what some of the next steps, because the balance of this is really a discussion about you guys and what you guys want to do on the site, and validate or reject some of the ideas that I circulated through the presentation. Is after tonight and after feedback that's received to your offices and questions, we want to assemble all of that feedback and start to take a look at it and start to prepare several alternatives. And you saw our timeline, we would do that through September and October. And those alternatives, might be small, medium, and large, or look at how things can be incorporated over time and phased. And we'll also start to put some prices to it. Ultimately, we don't have a capital budget that's approved to implement. So we really need to start to understand early on, is this $1 million? Is this $2 million? Can we do it over time? Can we get some grants, et cetera? But start to really understand what the dollars and cents associated with that are. Seek some additional opportunities for public consultation and working through the VIPA office so that we can take these ideas and present them back to this group to validate, reject, and say, I like that, and let's hybridize these two things together. But by the end of the year, really get to a point where we're finalizing the master plan, and we're getting a lot of nodding heads and people excited about the next stage of design. And we're retaining local talent to sort of help carry the water to get this thing moving forward. So with that, I'm going to stop. And a couple of just quick ground rules. Number one, for our friends who are online, we're using the microphone. So, you would just put your hand up and we'll get a microphone to you so you can say hello, say your name, and we can kind of get that so that everybody hears you online as well. Number two, for the folks that are online, I know you're all muted, but please just type in your comments. Do we know how many people we have online right now on the Zoom call? 17. So for the 17 plus or minus folks, we'll take a pause and spend maybe 10 minutes if there's comments, and we'll go through those. We'll read those out loud so you know the comments as well, and we'll be able to address either myself or Preston or the director, that we'll be able to move through those also. Okay.
Thank you. I'm gonna modify we'll show by hands, and then we'll move along. Take question or comment from let's just try. There's a lot of people. We have a lot of people online. Let's just try to be considerate to everybody. Everybody opinion is important. Before I go any further, I think I saw the administrator, Avery Lewis. That's the administrator. That's one of the folks, Governor's Pine person. Also, the Commissioner of Finance. Good evening. The Commissioner of Finance. Good evening. Folks, right. Exactly. Good. So the reason I did that, folks, right, in my former life as a politician, I know it's very, very important to treat that lady very nice. So I'm going to ask her, man, for an all. She's a local St. John, man, I clap. And we'll take the question, and I just want the Senate President to stand up for a minute. Just please, Madam President. Madam President, stand up. You used to work for me already, stand up. I clap for her too. Well, Pata, you look at, stand up quick, Pata. Any other senator, stand up quick, please, quick. So, okay, good. Folks, all I ask now, please, when this design done, I will wait till after November 8th, or later. But I just put in iron notice, please work with these same done people. We only have the design money now, but we're coming back for the chunk. Thank God. That's what I was standing up for. I was standing up for the voting it. I was standing up to let put iron notice now. And when I pass it, the finance commissioner, you from St. John, says you have to face the people and the boat every day. Good. So thank you in advance.
All right. Now the floor is yours, St. John. Who's starting first? Who has the first question? Ms. Monsanto.
I'll go.
You go?
We'll keep that to respond.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time, for coming and giving this presentation. I have some things that you might think are petty, but I need to bring up because it's really harassing me. You have Fish Ferry Drive. I don't know where that is. I know where Fish Ferry Drive is. Okay, then you have Moorhead's Marine Facility spelled incorrectly. And then my main question is, in your presentation, if you could take it back to your slide, your timetable.
Mhm.
Yes. Your topo and your site survey, why aren't those done first?
What, good question. So first, my sincere apologies that we've got some things to straighten out on maps. And this is the time to do it. So we're not looking at those errors later. So we'll certainly take care of that now. Typically, we like to do a master plan before we do the detailed site studies, because the master plan starts to identify things for us. We want to understand, the topo and the survey. We might need to get geotechnical information. We might need to do some kind of hydrologic studies. And often the master plan will start to call what those additional studies are out. Sometimes they can be expensive. And we want to delineate those at the through the master planning process, so that we can engage and understand and get those budgeted or do them within a budget moving forward when we move into detailed design. So that typically tends to be the pace of the design process is to, yeah, of course.
I'm sorry, just a quick intermission. Just before you speak your question, please say your name so that we know who to respond to. Okay.
You were nice enough to introduce me, Lorelei Monsanto, for the record. The area that we're speaking of used to be a dump back in the day.
Mhm.
And as the director Carlton Dow alluded to, when they did all the dredging, they threw it in the middle of the area there. So in my mind, I'm not an engineer. I think it would be better if we knew what was there before we progress on giving these grandiose ideas of what we want, so that we can know what our limitations are based on the survey that you have on that property. That's just my take on it.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, good feedback. Appreciate that.
Just for all of, as you drive through Florida, Miami, and you see some of these beautiful golf courses today and all kind of stuff. So it's not because they were a landfill 30 years ago, 40 years ago mean that. And so, yes, we have to do all diligence. None of this can happen without the archaeological, studies, whatever needs to happen. That's part of our permitting process anyhow. Commissioner Oriole was, as we go forward with this project, Commissioner Oriole, Public Works, Derek Gabriel, right across the way have a serious flooding problem where waste management, but we knows that. So all those things we know we have to take into consideration. So we'll continue along with our due diligence. Something could happen and say this can happen, but we here to a point where it's due diligence time. It's in interaction with you, and you bring in these thoughts. Who next for the question?
Good evening, Crystal George Thomas. You just spoke about my question. Our home is directly across from this location that you're proposing. And currently there is a major flooding issue that occurs in that location. I haven't heard any discussion or proposals to rectify that issue. Do you have anything in mind to solve that problem? Because it's an ongoing issue that's occurring right now.
Thank you. And just like you said, I alluded to it, but that's why we have, a matter of fact, I saw Mr. Luis Sylvester, you could wave. He is at Waste Management Authority, so we have some issues over there. Commissioner Gabriel will be a part. The team that will be working on this at the end of the day will be your folks from Waste Management, Public Work. So it's not going to be just a Port Authority show. It's going to be integration with everybody. The input is valuable. I came up here before I saw the level of flooding that takes place. And here's the point though, all of us know these discussions were here for a very, very long time. But what do we do about it? And that's what we're here to do something about it.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kelly McKinney from Island Green Living Association. I'd be remiss if I didn't quickly say to a crowd of this size that we're the nonprofit on St. John that provides plastic and aluminum recycling. So when this park comes to fruition, we definitely would like to see the integration of recycling services along with regular trash services. And I have a few remarks prepared on behalf of the organization I'd like to read. Island Green Living got its start as Island Green Building Association, established to encourage responsible development, championing sustainable construction that benefits community while keeping the carbon footprints to a minimum remains among our key principles. Island Green Living would like to extend our expertise and support to Virgin Islands Port Authority in the sustainable design and construction of the new multipurpose facility in Cruz Bay. It is imperative that the facility be built to the highest eco-construction standards as possible while ensuring it can withstand Category 5 hurricanes forces. The Living Building Challenge certification would ensure sustainability principles are incorporated into construction and operations. It is crucial that the project include the use of sustainable materials whenever possible and feature items such as solar roofing for over the parking area would be a great use of solar there. Renewable energy, rainwater harvesting, zero waste initiatives, wastewater recycling system for irrigation, etc. Care should be given to using recycled materials when possible in construction and being mindful of tropical architecture design considerations, including trade winds and sun paths. And finally, in 1991, one of our founding board members, Doug White, who's an architect that's been in the area for over 50 years, was hired by the Department of Housing, Parks and Recreation to draw up plans for a multi-purpose community center. So we strongly encourage a review of these original plans as a starting point. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. We appreciate your comment. And I'm glad you referenced what Island Living Green is. That's what it is. Island Green Living. I'm glad you make yourself known in the comments, and that's appreciated. But I don't want us to stop there. I listed when we began a group of individuals. Somehow you guys need to get together, have discussion, and start to develop what you think some of this, incorporate some of what you've seen or what you're talking about. Get together so that, and we started in December of 2019. So it's not to just read it, it's now to get folks in St. John. Come to the table. A gentleman there is an architect. He was to a couple of our meetings. You form organization so that when we come in with a full understanding as to the needs and that most of the community, that this is what we're buying into. That's what I hope you would do. Get involved. Don't stay on the sidelines. I wanted to say, I want to make sure by your right name, So Kim, please.
Good evening, thanks. Kim Lyons. Just to underscore that point, I think it'd be helpful if Port Authority gave us a container for those meetings, because otherwise we're going to leave this room and we're all going to meet in our own little separate groups and have our own ideas. And maybe if Port Authority can either provide the space or regular meeting, we can all come together and work together as opposed to in our own separate little groups coming up with our own ideas. And just to the finance people, St. John need 2 or 3 chunk of money, not just one.
Thanks, Kim. I just want to remind us what we had used is a very, very small area, the port's property. The port don't have any property outside of that, but I believe if you're doing with a monthly town hall meeting, I can't speak to the institution head, but this is the people's house as well. So I'm sure if you make the proper advance notice to them that, I don't see no reason why, but we would be glad to be a part. As a matter of fact, we could, when you leave here tonight, if you're really interested in being a part of the development, folks, we could start right here, see who we have. We already had a group of people. I think Ms. Carmen Westlaw was one of those people originally. Andy, I called your name already. I see you do like this one. I did call your name already. That's what we really want. I rather that kind of working group, Moffitt and Nichols, they'll be, always in and out. And Mr. All Thomas, any of you who had responded early on, you really responded to All Thomas. He's the one from our department. You have our public relations people. So, we'll continue to do this and be in contact. We want to make this happen. I'm not in this here for no exercise. It will happen. Questions? I think Mr. Lewis had your hand.
Yeah, sorry. Good evening, Avery Lewis, St. Thomas Waterland Administrator, sitting in for St. John Administrator. Just to answer the young lady's question, the design for the fish fry drive to deal with the mitigation problem, it's to property and procurement at this time, and should be on the website soon for solicitation. And then right after they go to design, and design should take about half a year to a year, and then construction. But I know the commissioner also said that funding has been approved already.
Thank you. The lady over here have a question. Sorry. Up to you. You're in charge of the mic.
Thank you. Good evening, Carmen Wesselhoff Edrington. I'd like Steve Black to stand up as well. We had several meetings, and I know we're here to give ideas as to how to develop this area. We had several meetings with Senator Payne. We also met with Director Dow, and we visited the site, and we have some suggestions. The St. John Cafe Area Association came up with a drawing along with Steve Black, and we presented it. So maybe in the end, after the questions, we could give you some of the ideas as to where we would like you said, a vendor plaza, an area. We had a place for walking and jogging. We had a place for amphitheater. So we did a rendering, and we have some suggestions as to how we would like to see it. Like I said, the St. John Cafe Area Association wanted to be a part. We wanted to donate. We wanted to make sure that this come to pass. And we're happy that Director Dow was here doing this, because we did approach him. We had the meetings. We did the walk in the parking lot. So I'd like to share some of those ideas. If I can do it now, or can I?
Yeah, sure. You could give it to Kai Smith. See Kai here? And what I want, and I'm glad you did that. Mr. Steve Black had been on this mission for
A long
years.
time.
Even when I was senator, he came by a couple of times. So you could take a couple of minutes and share what you want to quickly, and then we'll move on.
So, our initial plan was that since 1990, there's been a promise of a vendor's village. Rocky Library wanted a vendor's village, and I thought that maybe that should be part of this. So that would be in this area here, and it would be like little buildings. And if you remember over at Mandala Circle, they had some concrete buildings that they had, and they took those away. Maybe we could get them back. Then there would be the restrooms here, and then a big grassy field. Around the perimeter would be a walking, jogging track, because if any of you have driven the North Shore, you see people walking along the highway all the time. Pretty dangerous. Here, it would be so convenient for that to be. Here, where the berm is, in the berm between the dock and this area for the carnival park, there's a kind of like a hill, and that we see upon
Both of you on mute.
Mr.
Those of you on
Dell's,
Zoom, please
suggestion,
mute your mics.
there could be solar panels put there all along that, which would supply a lot of energy. We also have a kids playground, and we would have like the amphitheater would be in this area here. And we think that this was a starting point that we think would be very convenient for the town. This big grassy field that would be here would be probably about an acre to acre and a half of land, big grassy field. Like any city that you go to, that they always like to have a big grassy field. So Carnival, instead of like everybody being crammed into the customs parking lot, it would be a much bigger opportunity to lay out a blanket and the kids over in the playground. And then there's also some things that have come up over the while where people have wanted an area where there could be like yoga, or there could be like meetings, there could be like get-togethers, and also in this vendors village part of it, there would be tables and for people to like sit out. And another thing, there would be what we were thinking, that it would be a good thing if the taxis that take the cruise ship people on a tour of the national park would come back as part of their stop, that they end up here. And like the national park did a study one time, and they found out that cruise ship passengers spend equal to buying a can of Coca-Cola. And then they get back on the boat and they're gone. And so this way they could have a lovely time at our community park. They could get their soft drinks or some food or whatever they want. So that's been basically the plan that we had. And I want to thank Carmen for getting me up here. And
So you said it all, you laid it out.
Thank
And
you.
that was our proposal to the Senator Payne and to Director Dow.
Thanks. I
Sure,
hold on a second, please. Hold on a second. You want, give the microphone, Ms. Monsanto, you want one more question? Oh, from this, okay, fine, come. Don't go let- yeah, this-
The Friends of the Park is putting $500,000 playground on the other side by the park. Would you all consider in your plan putting the skateboarding rink? Because they've been disassembled right now. Would you consider a change?
Again, let me start off where we began, right? And I appreciate that. This is discussion, informational, and you, the residents, Mr. Black, Ms. Westlove, Leona, that's what we call it on. You get together, you have discussion, you build consensus, and then we move. So that's what we want to do. What's going to happen there tonight, Steve, Mr. Black, Ms. Westlove, even myself, is not going to determine that tonight. It cannot. We want that consensus be built. And when they leave, all of what Mr. Black here, we've had this discussion, and this is fine, except that we don't know that the masses buys into this. We want buy-in. This is a community project. There's not everything that they discuss here might be the masses of the people wishes. So whether it's a skating rink or what have you, everything, and that's why I'm insisting that folks here, right here, the residents of the port will take the lead in the initial phase to get the meetings going. But you're gonna have to, as a community organization and group, you're gonna have to get together and make decisions at the end of the day. So we're gonna have the discussions long time. Somebody over there had their hand up. Thanks again, Ms. Westlove and Mr. Black, good to see you. And Mr. Black having the discussion for probably, I'll say 25 years. When the Senate used to come down there every other week. But the one thing though, and that's perseverance, he wants to see something, but we should now make sure that these things happen. And that's what, we don't have the port. People will tell you, we don't have the luxury of talk. We're gonna make this happen. Somebody else have a question back here.
Good evening. My name is Dior Parsons. I have two questions. I have to stand. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I have two
Yeah,
questions.
we understand.
I remember in your presentation, if I remember correctly, you were trying to avoid indoor structures, but one thing that we lack, obviously, a meeting area. So was there a reason that you were avoiding the indoor structures? That's my first question. And my second question, I know this is kind of outside of the scope, but I know we brought up the barges, but we also lack docking for our smaller vessels, like our charter boats. So is that in this plan? Any, they say ask and you shall receive, so.
Great, thank you. Yeah, terrific questions. So again, I presented just some of the initial things that I had heard and was relaying. And so the general idea to avoid a lot of built structures was just about the area that we're within. The idea that, community meeting room is certainly something that we can add to the discussion. We'll just have to recognize that part of the master plan, we'll figure out and calculate what the finished floor would need to be based on some of the wave velocity zones and flooding zones. And sometimes, that makes these structures really high and it makes them sort of feel, out of context and sort of out of place with the surrounding area and the other types of things that you're looking to achieve. So to have a lot of built structures might be problematic, but we'll definitely through the master plan process, look at, community room and then, maybe how that would be, designed or what the elevation ultimately would have to be. And then your second question is in terms of marine facilities and docks, and we're not really studying that per se. We're really focused on the area within the yellow. But certainly if there's been plans out there or proposals or things that are in the work, we don't want to turn our back to those on the site. We sort of want to make sure that we embrace any other kind of possibility or development that's happening so that it can be, incorporated and sort of addressed within that. But specifically, no, we're not doing any marine investment or structure planning as part of this particular assignment. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback.
Good night, Clarence Stevenson, Deputy Fire Chief. However, I'm here as a community stakeholder. I was part of the initial meetings when we started in 2019, and we voted on this to go forward with this, and I'm glad that we are here tonight. However, like my cousin Kim said, when this meeting is done tonight, we're gonna go our separate ways and have our separate meetings and on Facebook talking about this and that. We need to come together as a community to vote on what we want for this project going forward. I tonight stand in support of St. John's Skate. They're looking for a home. I was surprised to see how many kids were over there every Friday on the tennis court. They're really looking for a home. So I want to implement that in part of this plan. And we need to come together as a community to talk about what we want for this project. Thank you.
Okay. Good night, Earl Thomas, Port Authority. I'm sorry. Everyone is saying that you're going your separate ways. I'm the point of contact. Send me up the information. Simple solution to the problem, okay? I'm gonna compile that information, the same thing we're talking about, the information will come to me. It's gonna be discussed internally and then we're gonna re-engage you guys, okay? Yes, it's Thomas at VI Port. It was on the flyer, it's been mentioned. So for those of you that don't know, I apologize. I am ethomas@viport.com. ethomas@viport.com.
One of the things, before anybody that wants to get in contact with us, you also have our public relations person, very active. She have the Facebook page, you call us. We have real people answering our phones when you call, and nobody gonna have you on hold for any long time. And it's that's the kind of operation we don't run. So we really want this to happen. And I'm stressing that all the time, and we're gonna do the things. And there's a reason why, and whether, in my farmer life, based on what I do, we know how we have to build consensus, and we could bring people together. The Port Authority just built over $30+ million worth of projects in St. Croix. And that was really, not easy, but these people, what you're seeing here, and we're gonna make it happen. So let us organize ourselves and we're gonna move from there. Somebody else have a question?
Abigail Hendricks. I'm really excited about the project. In Blue Skies, I'm really excited. It'll create jobs and whatnot. And you saying that it's a 50-year dream. So since the next one won't be within the next 50 years, I'd like to see whatever you can cover, because we have a dry weather situation, and whenever it rains, our functions end. So it would be nice to have a covered situation. Most importantly, I'm not here to talk about blue skies when everything is happy. I'm talking about after the hurricanes come. I heard you speak about your intentions, and I'm just kind of reminding you that it's imperative that this facility be used for bringing in our supplies, for staging our emergency, everything that was sent into us for the storm, for a point of distribution where the community can pick up their supplies, donations, whatever was sent to us. That area right across from the Starfish place is a perfect place to store our containers that come in. So I want you to take that into consideration, because that's a major factor after the hurricanes passed. So post-hurricane, we will be loving to be able to use that facility. As the coordinator of ESF 6 on St. John, it's imperative that that be included in your plans as well.
That's the one we could tell you will happen tonight. The Port Authority will, in fact, all our facilities, we understand the gateway. Whatever we consume, whatever we wear, for the most part, comes into, you don't take a tractor trailer, drive from one state to the next. So in any time like that, we will make those facilities available. It's not about the Port Authority, it's about the community and its well-being and survival. So that's easy for us to do. I saw, well, I see in Miss Barbara Peterson, the Vitima person. So no, as a matter of fact, when these things happen, the central government, all this stuff goes through. Not no port anymore. It's the government that the Virgin Islands properties for the most part.
Yeah, and I just wanted to follow up real quick on that. That comment. In one of the deliverables in the master plan will be not just a picture of what it looks like, you know, one day, but we want to start to have some sketches that show you what would it look like if you were doing relief supplies? Where would the containers go? What would it look like if you're having a festival? What would it look like if you're having carnival? Because it's going to be a site that has lots of different personalities. And if we can visually depict that, we may not have it 100% correct and you'll move things around, but at least the community can understand, well, what will it look like if it's doing X, Y, or Z? And so those will all be drawings that we include, in the work.
And I'm glad that you agreed, Director, because confession is good for the souls. I was planning to use it anyway.
Good evening, Bosede Bruce, St. John resident. Have you done, or when will like a traffic study be done about the traffic patterns? There's a lot of traffic down there already. It's 2 lanes. There's a lot of it's all residential, but it has to be accessible to everyone. And so when we get there, will we have to pay to park to enjoy this space? And it's not going to be reasonable. So I'm concerned about, there's already traffic there. Everybody on St. John know it's traffic, one time a day when a vessel is coming in. If the boat is coming in, if the barge is coming in, that's when we have the traffic, but it has to be accessible. We have to be, courteous to like Crystal and them that live right there. I mean, it's good for the businesses that's going to be around there, but for the residents that are there, and you're talking about like amplifying out to the water. I mean, all around that area, all up on the hills and stuff is all residential. So, but how will it be accessible to us? I guess is the focal point here. So, when are you going to do the traffic study to see what really happens there with the traffic? Where are people going to park to get there? How are we going to enjoy the space?
Great.
Without disrupting the neighbors.
Great series of questions. So to try to unpack some of those, at the master planning level, we're not doing a detailed traffic study and traffic counts. We're going to consult with government departments and understand from the community and from the data that's there, traffic counts, traffic flows, parking counts, the observational data and incorporate that in the master plan. But if we learn if there is something on the traffic side, something on the acoustic side, something on the whatever it might be, that would be a follow-on recommendation of the plan that needs to be studied in greater detail. So maybe it would be modeling the sound and understanding how it's going to reverberate off the different hills. That would be part of follow-on in the design process to start to model that. And you can put that in a computer and start to understand how the noise is going to behave in the area. If we think there's a lot of unanswered questions on the traffic side, to go back and to maybe do a detailed traffic study to understand what the generation counts are going to be. We certainly will be supportive of pedestrianism, cycling, and creating, walkable spaces from a design and a practitioner standpoint, how you access the site, move into the site and move through the site. Absolutely. It'll be closed at night, so there'll be gateways, right? It'll be fenced off. And so we have to think about where those points of access would be as well and start to think through those at a planning level. But again, anything that becomes a follow-on study would be something that becomes a recommendation out of the master plan. That is the next step.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Dawn Henry. So the community, in terms of the schedule how long are you envisioning that the community engagement part of the plan should play? And then the second, my question goes to the green space. I heard you talk a lot about lawn, right? People can picnic, lay out their blankets. Is it also going to be where you're going to utilize like trees for shaded areas and indigenous can withstand hurricanes? Because one of the things that I find, just especially when you're trying to relax, is so much sun. So having nice shade, I think it's also important to incorporate in the plan.
Great points. And I'll actually, Dawn, right? I'll respond to the second part is absolutely. I do say lawn because thinking about multi-purpose and performance, but it will be a blend of hardscape, paving, asphalt, and softscape, grass, plant, shrub, tree, that will create the overall space. And of course, we want to use planting strategically because it can attenuate sound, it can create shade, it can provide rain cover. And so really looking at strategically where we place it. And in many ways, those are features that create these outdoor rooms. You've got a big public space, but can you create a sequence of smaller public spaces and nodes and rooms so that when you have a birthday party, it kind of feels like it's your birthday party and it's not sort of, the world's birthday party. And then in terms of the schedule, absolutely. And while we haven't sort of depicted on that, we're working with VIPA as to when all these conversations will happen. I think that the director and the whole VIPA team are firmly in support that throughout this entire process, all the way until we get to design, there's going to be a series of conversations with the community that each step during the way, we're validating what you're seeing, we're validating the decisions. And in the end, ultimately, we're going to be validating how much we want to spend because it's taxpayer money to get to this point where we're actually constructing something. So certainly we'll have another consultation or two in the master planning process. And I would certainly expect throughout design, there will be a series of points in time that are just at those right decision points, making sure that there's a pause and sort of an intake of information, and then as needed an adjustment before things get too far along. Thanks, Tom. Go ahead,
Dior Parsons again. I have two questions. So my first question is, I think to Mr. Thomas, was it? So after you receive all these emails, let's say you get 200 suggestions, what's the next step? How do you get the community consensus from those emails? Is there going to be a follow-up meeting? Do you reply? Like, are you guys picking out of a pile? What's that process? My second question is, can we facilitate a meeting that is more targeted to our young adults and high school students so we can also get their inputs?
Interesting questions. I'm sorry. That's for us to determine internally. I'm just a point of contact that's going to be doing a collection. and then we're gonna have internal meetings. And like we said early on, we're gonna re-engage the community when we have something to bring forth towards you guys. Regarding the children, Mr. Lagarde, no, I didn't, no, you could follow up, I was gonna let.
And the children, and that's, no, I will say, and we're going to work together. So when you get those 200 emails, 300 emails, what we found is we'll have a call and we can go through this. So per 20 times, we need X. And if we hear these reoccurring themes, those kind of rise to the top, because that seems like a lot of folks are taking time to write an email or validating these points of view. And so we really need to address those. And then just kind of see, what's the temperature, the mood, the ideas, and look at it as a mosaic and really to pull out some of those key pieces, assemble those in drawings, present those again, and then see if they tick the boxes or there's still more things that we need to do. Now, again, we'll work with a team, but I'll tell you personal experience working with elementary and high school and even college age kids, especially now in the virtual world using Zoom, using MS Teams. We could certainly work with VIPA to set up an opportunity with a class, present the ideas, and then let the class just through virtual, hey, ask a question, or they're learning. Hey, they're learning about planning. Somebody says softscape. What's softscape? Oh, trees and plants. And so we could, and those are done. I've done that before. Opportunities where you have that engagement with kids and high schoolers. And what's interesting, and I'll say just again, we did this in a project called Bucktown Harbor in Louisiana. So it's the next parish next to Orleans Parish. And we had conversations with kids because the way they perceive the world is way different than the way, they're like, I want ice cream, or I want to feel a certain thing. And you often really hear some insightful things because of the way they perceive the world that translates into good design ideas. And so that was, we had a great occasion at a library to allow kids to sort of, talk about and learn, but also say, hey, I want to be able to play, or I want to be able to, have a snow cone or whatever it might be. And those populated into ideas that went into the plan.
Carmen Wesselhoff Edmonton again. I think we're missing something here. I think Director Dow is saying tonight, he is here asking us to come together as a community and let's submit a plan, something that we want to see happen with this park. We don't need permission to meet. So I'm asking, before we leave here tonight, those of us who are interested and wants to see what we would like design in this park, submit your names, your email address. Let's have our own meeting, come up with a plan. Even if you want to submit something to Mr. Earl, he doesn't need 20 emails. You could still submit something if you don't agree. We can get together, come up with a plan, come up with a design, come back together to the community, have our own discussion, and then get back to Director Dow or get back to Mr. Earl and tell him this is what the consensus of those of us who showed interest came up with, and let's see if it's doable. So I'm asking, before we leave here tonight, if we can sign our names, or if we can get the sign-in sheet, or if those of you interested, you can just sign up, put an email address. I could pass this around, a phone number. Let's get together, call our own meeting, come up with our own design so we don't sit and ram anything down our throats, and let's present it to them. And then we fight for what we want. So let's do that before we leave here this evening.
Thank you. No, hold on. No. It ain't gonna be that kind of thing. Okay, we're gonna do stuff orderly. There's a document that Ms. Harley, I believe, had been putting together. We don't hold it. We're not gonna hide it. So everybody, if you have that interest, and Senator Wesselhoff couldn't say it any better. And if at the outset of this meeting tonight, I said to all that at the end of the day, it's for the community. I gave you a list of folks who had met before to include Ms. Wesselhoff. So, but you organize your meeting, we will be available. If you want to meet with us, you give us proper notice. The last time I checked, my them to work for us. So wherever they are, we tell them we want to see you to a community meeting, and those folks will be there. Our engineering people, whoever. So I think she's so right that we want something driven from the community. But I also want to make something abundantly clear. At the end of the day, with your input, it's the Port Authority governing body would ultimately decide what's going to happen. Just want to make that clear. So if you don't see something where you would want, I just want to be clear that while we have all involvement, there are certain, we have issues that we have to deal with as well. For example, the Port Authority will maintain some kind of laid-down area in the vicinity because the construction, just like you talk about hurricane, whatever other stuff going to happen. So it's not going to be that the entire area is used only for the purpose that we describe it. The lady here wants to ask a question. Sorry. Who? The lady, oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Corinne Patry. That was a great idea. And I think emails are fine, but maybe a Facebook group where we could all get on and talk about it. Sounds like it's only about 3 months. So that's something that you can propose in addition to emails.
Once again, let me make it wherever that group decide that they want to do, however you want to communicate once. Let's try to deal with a couple people quickly that didn't speak before. That gentleman have it. Okay, the lady and the gentleman have their hand up for a minute.
Good evening. My name is Pam Gaffin, and I'm very excited about this plan. I was 25 years ago about this plan. And in 2019, this is cutting out, that there were a number of people who were also dedicated and have been dedicated for a long time about this plan, presented it to you, and nothing happened. So with all respect, why will it be any different this time? And along with that, in 2019, in December that same month, the community made it very, 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 very clear how they felt about the paid parking situation. We have continued to make it very, very, very clear how we feel about the paid parking situation. And when you talk about wanting us to buy in and work together, and you are going to listen to what we say, and we are going to come up with a plan that makes the community happy, I have not seen that happen in the past, and I don't know why it would change in the future. I also have a difficulty with the fact that you have not fulfilled all the requirements that the CZM, St. John CZM committee had, that you are still have not complied with about the gravel lot, and makes me wonder if you are going to comply with the applicable laws in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next person, please. Next person.
Good evening, Kurt Marsh Jr. Several things. First thing, yes, Carmen, we need to figure out how to meet and form consensus and bring something serious together. As a part of that group in 2019, it's kind of a shame that 3 years later is when we have a response to that. So Dior, everybody who have that concern, more than willing to put energy behind that. So let's figure that out. Second thing is, from an architectural standpoint, there was a concern about sound and all of that. I don't know if you've been to Millennium Park in Chicago. They designed and engineered it in such a way that it's contained to that space. So if we look at it architecturally and from a design standpoint, most problems we could solve. So that's something we could address based on how we approach the architectural design. Sorry, I'm really cold and I've been shivering for a while. So bear with me. And I can't bring coffee in here to keep myself warm. Third thing is we keep having these conversations about these different sites, and we're calling it master planning of this site. But what really needs to happen, and this conversation isn't had enough about master planning of the town space, because this park can't be a conversation that's had separate and apart to marine facilities right in the same area, separate and apart to the fish market conversation that we had earlier today, separate and apart to the Cruz Bay, the Loredan Bourne Senior Renovation Pier. All of these conversations have to happen simultaneously and conclusively so that we could come to some real kind of comprehensive planning around how we use the very limited space in town. So it's a little, as an architect, with some kind of planning experience, it's a little disappointing that we don't have an overall comprehensive discussion about all of these spaces. While I want to continue to be super excited because these are things we want to see happen anyway, but how do we bring it all together in a real comprehensive way so that all the things make sense? Because how do we design this park and we talk about vendors and a plaza, but then maybe in 5-10 years, we build out the bulkhead. And so we have slips and we have boats and we have a whole different kind of traffic. And then the $10 million we spend building this park, we got thrown another 5 at it because now we're trying to accommodate for a whole different kind of space and activity that we didn't have the vision to foresee in this moment. That's all for now.
Thanks. What I can tell you, the folk that we have and staff on board will continue the dialogue, the discourse, and
I'll give it to him.
all I can further say is that we're not here for some exercise. We're here to have the discourse, and with the Port Authority will act. Anybody know? We will act. So you might like how we act, but we'll act. I know. Give us a second. This gentleman had his hand up forever.
Good evening, Bromel Jermaine. I get the sense of haste with the sense of planning and putting something together to bring the park to fruition. But there's been some ongoing infrastructure issues that's been going on around the area that we're talking about. So I just, as a resident of St. John, would like to see the same haste that goes into the planning of this park, put into the infrastructure side of it, so that it's done right the first time. Because if we only gonna have an opportunity like this every 50 years, I think we should do it right the first time so that we don't have to go back like we're doing with some other stuff and redoing stuff on the back end.
Thank you. That's why one of the things I want to make clear, while these properties are the port's property, entrusted to the Port Authority, the discussion and dialogue, it's not only the port. I think Mr. Lewis explained to you where public work is at, DPNR, all these folks will engage. And at the end of the day, the port can't build nothing, as all of us should know and just recently had an opportunity to deal with. And nothing wrong with that. When we started to do the design here, the folks, to include CZM, said, we don't like this, we didn't like that. It costs us money, but that's not the issue. Even if it costs us money, but we need to try to get it right, we went back to the drawing board. So it's not that, it's not no, the port say I'm going to do this and we just do it. We have institution that's going to be a part from the inception. So you're on the CZM committee as an example, Mr. Marsh. CZM, if it comes to that point, you're going to have an opportunity to say, we don't like this, change this, do that, or do the other. The Port Authority is not responsible for no master plan of the territory or the island.
Good evening, Crystal George Thomas again. I need some clarification from something that you said earlier. You said that the park is going to be closed at night?
Yes.
Well, hold for a second. That's a determined, and it's no, we had this discussion, right? There will be hours of operation for the park. This, and all of us should want, and when we say, he says closed at night, at the end of the day, the Port Authority, and he's speaking from discussion we had. This is not going to be some open sepulcher where 2 o'clock in the morning open, anybody come, go do what they want. This is investment that we have to manage. We don't expect to close it down 8 o'clock in the night that school children can't play. That's not what we meant by close down. This is a property that the port will own and will have to protect it. So that's what we talk about when we say close down. There will be hours of operation. Outside, I mean, this cannot be some place that, hold 1 second. It's not some place that you could leave. There might be some area that you leave, some grassy area or some that you leave, people could go down wherever hour at night, wherever they want. But I'm talking about where we're doing like the amphitheater and some of those areas, we can't leave the whole thing open up. That's all, that's what we're saying.
Sheets first and then come to Jennifer.
Good evening. My question is, if we're moving, for example, the Carnival Village Oh, sorry, Sherry Ann Francis. The area we're moving it to is from a commercial area to a mainly residential. My question is, how many people in that direct area is actually here at the meeting tonight? I think if we have a door-to-door campaign, especially since it's a feasibility study, they're directly affected when we make that change. So I think there need to be some engagement with the neighbors in that neighborhood, a noise study. These things should be happening as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your opinion. We appreciate it. Anybody else have a question?
Good night, everyone. Dr. Hadia Soor here. I have a couple questions, so I hope you don't mind me kind of bouncing back and forth really quickly. My first question is, can you help us to understand how the $400,000 is being allocated specifically? Will there be any transparency around the budget breakdown? And I'm asking specifically because as the community, meets and comes up with solutions, I think we want a lot of our input to be informed by some level of data and evidence. And so what support can we expect in actually commissioning studies so that when we come up with our suggestions to you, they actually are grounded in some merit?
What I'll tell you is the Port Authority, this money was appropriated by the legislature of the Virgin Islands. They have oversight over whatever they might want, but at the same time, we work from a governing body of 9 people. We have board meetings. We determine how money is spent. Our financial statements are on our website. And if there's something specific you want to know, there's no military secret. But for example, when we engage Moffitt for this study, that's something that's public. So it's out there in the public, it's in our board meetings, it's in our records. Like I indicated very early on, that Moffitt and Nichols was selected by the governing body, not for this project, but they are our marine consultant of record, in which we must always keep on board. So we are open book. And if in fact there's something specific you want to see, we would be more than glad to share it with you,
And so specifically, if the community needs funding for a traffic study or for the door-to-door community engagement, how would we go through requesting those funds? Or how would we pose that question to you?
Well, all I could tell you that for this project, the Port Authority is going to do the things that we think we have to do to get us to the point with the engagement that we have in. But in terms of the studies, the Port Authority would not be the entity to give some private organization money to do a study or anything like that. So no, what we would be doing is basically following our roadmap. If there is some discussion or some real need that something needs to happen, then the group that will be put together, the consensus of that group will be brought forward to the Port Authority, and that's how we'll operate.
Okay, so there won't be any support in place for the community to collect data so that our input is informed by evidence? Correct?
I don't understand the question. If you're talking about the traffic study, just like you indicated, that's something that we'll take into consideration, how you move people from point A to point B. But let's not kid ourselves. St. John, down in the area that we're talking about, you guys know how it is right now when the budgets come in. Same thing in Crosby. We're operating with limited footprint to try to make some of these things happen, to make them a reality. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
No, I have another question.
Okay, ask your last
And
question.
so, the last question?
Yeah, I mean, so there's,
All
listen,
right,
when I
so-
say the last question, ma'am, I only mean that there's 4 or 5 questions you ask. We have other people, we have people online.
Just
that
one
wants to-
question?
yeah.
So for the second question, I'm hoping that we could have a lot of opportunities for public fitness and engagement, specifically as it relates to questions of public health. And I also feel like when we talk about cultural heritage preservation on St. John, there's so much of our history that we actually need to tell. And we have such a rich history that's pivotal not only to the island of St. John, but also the region and the wider world. And so how do we go about the process of determining which aspects of this history can be incorporated in educational exhibits or other forms?
So great questions. And specifically in the master plan, through this discussion, through our work, we might identify places where we think, we call them often moments. Like this would be a great location for this type of a civic installation or place. We're not designing it, but we sort of say, we think that's a really good, because of views, because of whatever it is, that a story should be told there. And then in the subsequent stages of design, that would be up to the architect, the landscape architect, working with artists and others to actually determine what that is and move through commissioning or design or whatever it might be. So our role at this is just to say, hey, where would those great opportunities be, at least the way we see the world now, and start to have that be informing and suggesting follow-on design stages. And then back to, this idea of healthy communities, clearly that's been a direction that, communities all, especially coming out of COVID, have even gravitated even more towards, of closing streets, opening areas, being outside, looking for opportunities where we can have health and wellness and benefit. I think you mentioned yoga and lawn yoga programs, information, Vita courses, trails. I think those will all be things we want to explore. And one of the things we try to do in a master planning process is connect the dots of money, because we recognize that you as taxpayers directly, may not be able to fund all the things that you want to do, but often we find opportunities that, oh, look, we've got NOAA and Resilience Communities has the series of grants, and perhaps this particular project slides over well and could go into a grant application where additional monies are matched against that. Healthy community initiatives are often in that category as well. And while we can't explore, everything, we certainly will look to those opportunities also. For our engagement, this little piece that we're doing right here, right now, you've only encumbered about 10% of the money that's been allocated for this whole project. There's 90% left to do, that somebody needs to do to work through all of these different stages and studies and whatever's needed, whatever our outcomes. And so, we feel that the director and the money is create a pretty good runway to do a lot of the things that are really required to make this become a possibility moving forward.
Hello, Michael Milne, Barefoot. Is the 400,000 for stage 1 and stage 2?
Yes.
Okay. And what model waterfront park is locked up at night that you could point to and say, this is a successful project and this is part of the community, except there's a big fence around it? And you try to get into the park, and if not, why not get rid of a fence?
Yeah, so I would say, definitely it's not admission, it's not an amusement park, it's a civic space. But a lot of there are definitely waterfronts, aspects of the New Orleans, riverfront, that because of security issues, police issues, that there are fences and an ability at night that you close the park. I mean,
Listen, there are areas and we make, you're going to be a part, you could have the discussion, but there are areas of the park that will have to be closed. I mean, there are areas. So let's not kill ourselves. Listen, I'm the wrong person. If you believe, I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what I honestly believe. No, I'm telling you, I'm going to tell you what's the truth. There are segments of the park that would have to be secured. And then there'll be parts that could be opened up. You could go down to 2, 3 in the morning. You understand? So let me tell you something. I'm as much either Virgin Islander and a real one and a true one. And all of us have stake in what goes on. And as a local Virgin Islander, it gives me no pride. All of us have responsibilities. But we can't continue to treat government property sometimes in the fashion it's being treated. And then everybody travel all over the world and say, man, look how nice they look. What happened to us home? So I'm only saying that the Port Authority will protect its investment. Plain and simple. Wants to say something here? Hello, Madam President. Hold on, sorry. Okay, we'll come back to
That's
you.
okay.
This gentleman in the orange didn't speak yet. Just give him an opportunity. Go ahead.
Yeah, my
sir.
orange shirt just stands me out. Good evening, all. The name is Joseph Harrigan, local St. John resident and business person. Let me say, Commissioner Dow, thanks for coming up this afternoon, you and your group. We really appreciate you, all you do. The one question I have is on this project, you said it's about 4 acres?
3.75 at least.
3.75. Does that include the parking area, the parking lot that's there now?
It does.
It does. So all of that would be facilitated by this project, wouldn't be?
To include a level of parking. There will be some level of parking in the area.
Oh, okay. Because I think we were still just getting accustomed to the parking now as it is, and it might be taken away from us pretty soon. But if you can at least leave some parking for us, we'll be appreciative of that. One other question on the.
That's all for a minute. Please let the gentleman speak and then we'll go to anybody else.
I know your slogan is now get it done now. And we appreciate that. How soon after all these plans have been submitted and whatnot, do you think it would take this project to be completed?
Well, this is a project, being frank, and it's not because the senators here have worked very, very closely, no secret, with many of the senators. We've been able to work with them. I can't give you a date, but I know that I had the same discussion with the governor of the Virgin, Albert Bryan. He wants it to happen. So with the forces coming together, I suspect that when these plans are done and completed, the Port Authority want to be in a position to start construction. That's how I operate. And anything else?
And my last question, sorry. My last question, the Crown Bay Marina is a beautiful project down there. Would it be similar to the Crown Bay? Because that could be logged in at night, wouldn't it be? Or is it?
Parts of Crown Bay, we can secure the center, we secure some areas at night.
Okay.
But for the most part, a lot of it is open up.
So probably this could be similar. Thank
And
you
that's
much.
all-
Appreciate
That's
it.
all we're simply saying. There are going to be parts that will be secured. Mr. Marsh, you have something else? I'm sorry, as soon as Mr. Marsh done, probably hit the corner there for me, please. And the nice Christmas shirt, I like it, Andy.
Okay, I'm kind of wearing my CCM hat now, and we have a grape. A few years ago, the St. John Committee of the Coastal Zone Management Commission voted against the modified permit that Viper had submitted, mostly because we were expecting the landscaping plan implementation as well as continuing negotiations around the fee structure. Neither of those things have happened to date, and the commission has been requesting through DPNR some kind of response. So it would be a show of good faith if Viper would respond to that, especially because the committee unanimously denied the permit modification. The second part to that question is, since there is an existing permit for the parking facility, and now you just confused me a little bit when you said there will be some level of parking remaining. Is this going to be a new permit modification that's coming forward? Is it going to be a brand new permit for the entire site, or is it two separate things? Are we going to manicure the parking lot as is based on the current permit, and then this permit, this project for the culture space is a separate something, or is there, what is happening from that standpoint? Because now I'm a board member of
Fine.
CZM and I'm concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Court Marsh, board member. What I want to be, he's a board member. Mr. Marsh, board member. You're speaking as a board member. That's what you said, right? No, the Port Authority, this entire project, as we go through the process of permitting, we can't knock a nail until we have the project permitted. What I said is that there will be some semblance, some level of parking at the facility. So whatever permits we need, to whether we want to add parking, I don't know what that entire space is going to look like. The decision is going to come, how much parking, even if it's another level or not, and then we'll have to permit it. We'll have to come to CZM. The CZM people will take whatever action they deem necessary. We expect to work with folks. You send us back, just like, and again, we only could talk about, from time to time, we have projects in St. Croix, CZM say, hey, go back and do this here. That's what we do. That's what we do. So this is going to be no different. I don't know what's going to remain, what's going to be taken away. It's the entire area that we're going to have to plan out and go through the entire permitting process to get what we want done. I know the Senate President wanted to say something. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dow, for recognizing me, but I came here this evening to listen and definitely to learn what is most important to the residents of St. John. But as I sat here and Mr. Dow put us on this spot, it's important that I ask this question, not of the Port Authority, but of the people in this room. How many of you know that there is a St. John Capital Fund? Okay, okay. Excuse me, allow me to speak. So when we came on board in the 33rd legislature, one of the things that I immediately recognized was that they were using the funds to move trash. This is not politics. To move trash. And I spoke to my colleagues in the budget process and I said, look, we have a capital improvement plan, a capital improvement fund in the Big Island. We didn't have one in St. Thomas at the time, but we do not use the capital improvement fund on the Big Island for trash. So therefore, in this district and on this island, we have to utilize those funds for the purposes of capital projects. So since 2019, we've been utilizing those funds for capital projects. So because I know there's this ask about where the funding is going to come from, and Mr. Dow put us on the spot. If the St. John community wants our capital improvement fund, which is $1.5 million that's appropriated annually, it comes from annually, then what we do, and that money comes from the general fund, then the St. John community can decide that that $1.5 million is used for this project or any other project. We use, I think, $950 for the Loren and Boys dock. I think there's some more extension that need to happen there. In the next week, we're looking to appropriate another $570 to make sure that that project is completed. And the $400,000 for this startup, I actually was the one that moved the legislation because Port Authority acts, but what's important, and I recognize the importance of understanding that we need to know as legislators, what is it that you want on this island? It's not what we want as legislators or the Port Authority. It's what you want on this island. So there is a $1.5 million amount that sits in that account annually, and there's funding sitting in there now. So it's important for St. John, for the St. John community, and I like the idea that Ms. Carmen came up with, that you have to get together and tell us what your ask is. And then our job is to give you the ask, because you do have those funds available to you on an annual basis for capital projects in the on the island of St. John. And if there's additional resources needed, we have a responsibility to figure that out. So I thought it was very important for me to put that on the record in this conversation that we have today. I think right now there's sufficient funding in that account to begin to do more than the 400,000, but it all depends on what you want. And I have to say too that Mr. Marsh, your first, when you got up first, I must agree with you that from a comprehensive perspective, we have to look at what's happening on St. John, what should happen rather on St. John comprehensively. St. John is a small enough community for the St. Johnians to come together to decide what that should look like. And we shouldn't do it on Facebook. This is not a Facebook conversation. So Karen came up with a good idea. You came up with a good idea. We have an island administrator. Let's come together and begin to really comprehensively think about those things, because I agree with you. Thank you, Mr. Dow.
Thank you, Madam President. Anybody else have a question or comment? Hold a second. Anybody who didn't speak already? Fine. Go ahead.
I actually don't have a comment. I just would like to first say that I totally agree with Black in the Park. If you notice, every week, every month, we have a new homeless person coming to St. John. And like Director Dow said, why can't we have something nice that we can take care of? You go in the park the next morning, there's trash all about. You go in the Cruiseway Park, there's sleeping all about. So we have to protect this park. If we're going to invest in it, let's take care of it. But I actually got up to say, Director Dow, I'm going to disagree with you tonight. You said this is not that type of party, but since this is our party and we're going to make our decisions, we can't just go with that master list because there are people here from St. Croix, there were people here from other places. So I would still like to ask, against what you said, after this meeting, for those of you who are interested, please sign up, give me your number, give me your email. That's a very long list. Maybe not everybody is interested. So after the meeting, when Director Dow is finished, we can have our own party outside. Give us your name and your email for those of you who are truly interested. Thank you.
Madam, thanks. Hold a second, Russ. Since we are on a nice public record, whether I didn't articulate it properly and you didn't understand what I was saying when I said there wasn't this kind of party, but at the end of the day, all we're trying to make sure we accomplish, I was only saying that there's a list that several of you had attended. It don't matter not to us. You stop, take your list, put it together, have your meetings, and if you want us to participate, we'll be there. So that's small in the scheme of things. All we're trying to stress is that the residents of St. John be the ones, have your meeting. If you want any of these folks at your meeting at some point, that's fine. Just give us proper notice and we, in fact, will be there. I need to also remind you that 2019, December 2019, all of us know just shortly after that what happened here, not here, what happened in the globe. So for 2 years, the whole place was unlocked. That's a fact. Anybody else we have? Oh, sorry, the gentleman in the
Good evening. My name is David Marsh. I'm not sure if Kurt, I think he touched on it, but I just want to make sure with the project that we think about a lot of times here in the Virgin Islands, and I'll talk about the dock in Red Hook, the barge dock here. We always build for today. We don't think about St. John is growing. You know, once upon a time, we had a really small car barge, the PT Blue. Now we have the Grand Vic and barges like that. So just make sure when we do the project, we think about St. John is continuously growing, and we don't want to do something that, you know, 3 years from now, we got to go back in because it can't accommodate the festival, carnival village, or the amount of tourists that we're going to have for the Vendors Plaza.
Thank you. Well said. I appreciate your comments. Thank you. But that's why, again, I have a lot of faith in trust, and I make it clear all the time. The Port Authority have some young engineers like this one here and several others, and we put a lot of trust and faith in their ability to look to the future as to what we are to be doing. We incorporate that with our consultants and with the community involvement, and I think we'll end up good. I really think we'll end up good. And we have to stop every time we strive and every little piece of negativity. But how do we move forward? How do we move forward? And that's the step that we expect to take. Something will happen. Anybody else have a, Julie Harley, you, St. John itself, Julie Harley holder, you. Anybody else have something? And those of you, there's several of you who call us from time to time. Monifa, our public relations person, is very active and so forth. So if you need to get hold of us, Preston Bayer, that's the Director of Engineering, Carlton Charleswell, Anis, the whole crew. Anybody in the Port Authority will be able to at least guide you or steer you to what's next or who next. We'd be really looking forward to, if you organize your meeting on your own, we really would welcome that. Sit down, organize, and what we must understand as we listen to each other tonight is that one shoe don't fit all, one size don't fit all. And some of us, the hardest thing for us to do sometimes is going to a room. And I could tell you as a former senator, to be in a room and caucusing and having discussion, I tell them, any politician who tell you, I ain't compromising on nothing, they're not a politician. So I'm only saying that only because you've got to be able to go in a room and have discussion, debate, and be able to ultimately agree to disagree. But then in the final project, majority rules, and that majority coming out of whatever meeting you have. And we shouldn't just take up our marbles and walk away either. And that's another thing. You ain't like what they say, well, gone, I ain't coming back. And then we go on the sideline, we cuss all day. We've got to really be, and I tell my friends sometimes, I use the term, we have to get politically mature, but we have to get mature in terms of how we're going to treat and operate with each other and within the discourse that we're going to have. So I really, the Port Authority, our consultant, we really will be looking forward to you to orchestrate and organize those meetings so that we could have a good product that all of us could be satisfied with, the children, the future. Nothing should be more heartwarming for us to be able to build something, erect something, and look at children playing, children being interactive instead of just only on the, whatever you call it. Anyhow, right, the devices. But at the same time, a senior who have put so much into this community could feel safe enough to walk down, go down by the park, sit down there, shoot, talk to friends or whatever the case might be. And when the time comes that you want to bring in a nice jazz concert, that it could be there and all the community could come. I mean, who wants to come out could come out. You might have somebody, you might want to have a major gospel event. That's what you might want. But you could do that in some setting that is fitting for this place. I mean, a lot of us travel, and just recently I was in Puerto Rico down by the new convention center there. They have this T-Mobile Center. Part of it is enclosed, part of it is not. You go there on any given night, the activity there with everything. Children could be playing one way, adults could be in a restaurant eating, and then there's open space with music, Latin music, people dancing. You know how the Latin dance, whatever, but people dancing, no. Carmen, you're going a little far when you're going to tell me, do I dance calypso, but not the Latin thing I ain't too good. Last time somebody tell me, baila, papi, baila. I asked them why I bailing. So I didn't know it had mean dancing. And Miss Wells, you have something you want to say.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Wells. I'm a resident of St. John for a number of years, and I've attended numerous meetings here from almost all of the entities of the Virginians. First, I'd like to tell you that Ulysses answers everything you write to her. So I like that. They don't put you on hold. I like too that you're here. We started on time, and you're not rushing to take the 8 o'clock ferry. You might make the 9, or it doesn't matter. I like too that you have all of the persons we need to have here to question them. And I love your lady at Red Hook, because I always have questions for her about parking. So I am just a happy camper here, and I'm here a little bit in 6 months and another 6 months. I don't know how much I can take part, but I like to see what I'm seeing, what's being proposed. I also believe we need to lock it up at night because we're tired not being able to sit in Cruise Bay on those parking benches. Sometimes we just want to sit there and look at the sunrise or the sunset or something. So I agree with that. So whatever is going to happen with the younger persons from CZM and all that, I know it's going to be good for us. So thank you so much for coming, and thank you for how you handled us here tonight.
That's a teacher in her own right, an educator. Thank you so much, Ms. Wells. Anybody else have? We'll take about 3 more questions and then we'll let out.
Dior persons again, I'm sorry, I'm not able to stand up. So I just wanted to extend a thank you. I can tell everybody whenever I personally call Mr. Carlton Dow, he answers and he responds. So, if you guys do have concerns, just reach out. And on behalf of Society 340, I believe that Carmen, I know you wanted to have a community meeting, but I feel like that should be hosted by maybe the St. John administrator. So, we could maybe reach out to her so that way we can include not only Port Authority, but there's other agencies that have to be a part of this project, like Public Works, CZM, DPNR. So maybe bring everybody to the table as well as the residents that live in that area. And I think the best person to do that is the administrator. So just a suggestion.
Thank you, A.V. Lewis, Mr. Administrator. Anybody else? When you say administrator, here you gotta be careful. You have Andy Rotnick. Every time you say administrator, he's looking up. We love you every time. We love you every time, Andy. Yeah. Anybody else have a comment? I want to say, on behalf of the Virgin Sport Authority, Moffitt and Nichols, I'll give you guys a minute to wrap up. But I really want to say to this community, we are here because we really want your engagement. We want your thoughts. We want your opinions. And you funnel them through these folks that we have. I continue to tell you that I speak publicly and I make no apology. We have young, bright people at the Port Authority. And that's what we cherish. When you look at all Thomas, okay, a local engineer, electronical engineer. You look at Mr. Kai Smith, went to the same school a lot of them went to. And today back home at the Port Authority, a civil engineer. That's the thing that makes me feel good. Mr. Carlton Charleswell, who have studied architecture and so forth, the project manager for the Port Authority, that's Mr. Charleswell. And of course, Dale Gregory, we could never forget Dale. Dale is a person that continues to mentor a lot of those youngsters. So I tell people all the time, and they misinterpret what I'm saying. I says, the Port Authority have the young and the old. So it's a nice blend because there must be folks, we must always remember that tomorrow I would not have done my job at the Port Authority. If something happens to me tomorrow, whether it's Preston, whether it's Kai Smith or Thomas Julius Harley, I will feel comfortable that any of those folks tomorrow could run the Port Authority. And we don't have to import a soul to do that for the port. That's what I feel good about. I'll take one last question and then Moffitt and Nichols, I know you're on the clock still? Anyhow, 24/7, that's the problem. Anyhow, let me hear from you.
Yep, sure. Just a thanks to everybody that attended tonight. Certainly passion, spirit, great ideas, great feedback. We are at the beginning of a project, and just like funneling down, we want to find a common and great direction forward through this process.
You got a brand new haircut to come tonight, say something.
Well, thank you to everyone for showing up here tonight. And today is my birthday, so if we could sing happy birthday for me, that'd be, nah, I'm just playing. But thank you all for really coming out and voicing your opinions. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, once again, thank everyone for coming out. I look forward to you guys reaching out to me. If you so decide to, we are going to do our utmost best to make sure that the community get what it wants and it needs. I am from the Virgin Islands. Born in St. Thomas, but I'm a Virgin Islander. I know all 3 islands. So I don't take it lightly. And like Mr. Marsh said, we don't need just a single pocket in a silo conversation about one piece of property. It has to be everything encompassing in a whole, okay? And Director Dow said, we are engaging other agencies. We are in communication with them. So something is just not happening because Port Authority wants to do it. I don't know about other agencies, but we engage them to make sure that it is a community effort. Okay, and thank you all very much once again.
I'm just going to take the opportunity to echo the sentiments of everybody at the Virgin Islands Port Authority and thank you for your involvement and your engagement here. We showed up today to listen to what you had to say and the vision that you have for this space. And I feel like that we've started down the right path here in being able to develop something that everybody in St. John can be proud of.
Senator DeGraff, you want to say anything quickly? I don't know, no politician who don't take a shot.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Again, it ain't a grandstand, but I appreciate what was done, man. I was invited by the director to come up to be a part of this. I yield to the St. Junians to make that decision. But again, my number is on the sheet. I like to be involved. Again, as your representative, as a senator, I can vote yes regardless, but it's just to have stake in the whole thing. St. Thomas, St. John, St. Croix, Ward Island, I'm on board. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Senator DeGraff. I hate to tell you the truth, though, but as I invited you, it's votes I'm counting. Julius, is there anything quickly?
No, I too just want to mimic the sentiments of staff. Thank you all for coming. We had a feeling we would have a good showing, but I'm impressed by the collage of people that came tonight, and thank you again.
As we wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, from our hearts, the Port Authority, all the government officials, Mr. Avery, Lewis, Commissioner of Finance, and everybody, all government officials. Gentlemen say he's representing Mr. Volkes. Good to see you. Ms. Francis, we're glad that you're here. And all of us, at the end of the day, I would hope that the takeaway is that let's turn the page, let's turn the chapter, and make this thing happen, make this thing a reality. And that's what our only purpose being here tonight, listening. And anybody, if you miss something, you want to get to us, we give you all our contact. Please feel free to utilize it. The administrator say he wants to say something. She's going to get it now. Oh, okay, I love you every time. And
Good evening, everybody. I echo my colleagues' sentiments. Thank you all for coming so much. I am the public information officer. I take my job very seriously. We keep our website updated. If you're looking for any information, financial information about the port, what we do at our board meetings, it's all on our website, viport.com. We have active social media pages. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But if you're not into all of that and you like the old-fashioned way, that works too. Our telephone number is 774-1629, and you can reach any one of us at that number. Okay, thank you. That works too, Julissa or Renee.
When I try to stay around to deal with that, I think one of the most important things of our discussion is organization. Stop, take a second, try to organize. Let's not be so busy that we can't really participate in whatever we're doing. So again, we appreciate each and every one of you. Good night.